The great crystal halls of the Galactic Council shook with fear. Ambassador Velthari stood in the center of the vast room, her body made of living crystal that normally glowed with soft blue light. Now that light flickered like a dying candle. Her 3 eyes looked around at the other alien leaders, hoping to see help in their faces. She found only worry and fear. They came without warning, Velthari said, her voice breaking the heavy silence. The translation machines around the room turned her crystal song into words that all the different aliens could understand. The Drac Empire attacked our outer colonies first. We thought it was just another border raid. She touched a control on the floating platform before her. Images filled the air above the gathered aliens. What they saw made many of them step back in horror. Planets that had once been green and full of life now looked like burnt rocks floating in space. Cities that had housed millions of her people were gone, leaving only black scars on the ground. The Draknari do not want our resources, Velthari continued. They do not want our territory. They want us to suffer. They want us to die slowly and in pain. They take pleasure in watching entire worlds turn silent. Councillor Mordun of the Altarian Republic raised one of his 4 arms. His people looked like tall, thin humans, but with purple skin and no hair. Ambassador Velthari, the Altarian fleet stands ready to help. We have been allies for 300 years. Your help is not enough, Velthari replied sadly. Forgive me, old friend, but we both know this. The Drac bioweapons eat through your ship hulls like they are made of paper. Your soldiers cannot fight creatures that can regrow lost limbs in minutes. More images appeared in the air. These showed the Drac themselves, tall, dark creatures with too many teeth and claws that could cut through metal. Their ships looked like living things covered in what appeared to be skin instead of metal plates. Worst of all were the recordings of Drac soldiers laughing as they destroyed Corallian cities. The Theron hegemony offers its war fleets, announced General Kextar. His people were the strongest warriors in the known galaxy, standing 8 feet tall with thick armor like skin. Our ships have never known defeat. Velthari showed them more recordings. Theron warships, the pride of their mighty empire, being torn apart by Drac bioships. The living weapons of the Drac Empire seemed to learn from each battle, growing stronger with every fight. In 3 months they have destroyed 47 worlds, Velthari said. 47 worlds that held over 2 billion of my people. The survivors. There are no survivors. The Drac make sure of that. The council chamber fell quiet again. Representatives from dozens of different alien species looked at each other with growing panic. If the Drac could destroy the Corallian Federation so easily, what hope did any of them have? What about the Zephyrian Collective? Asked someone from the back of the chamber. Their technology is the most advanced in the galaxy. Velthari's crystal form flickered more dimly. The Zephyrians tried to help 3 weeks ago. They sent their best science ships with their newest weapons. The Drac captured them alive and used their own technology against them. Now the Drac ships have Zephyrian shield technology. Fear spread through the council like a disease. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy for their incredible machines and weapons that seemed like magic to other species. If even they could not stop the Drac Empire, who could? There must be someone, Velthari pleaded. Some species we have not asked for help. Someone who might have a way to fight them. The aliens looked at each other but said nothing. They had asked every major power in the galaxy. The Altarians were too weak. The Therons were too slow. The Zephyrians were too predictable. Every other species was even less able to help. Wait, said a small voice from near the back. Everyone turned to look. It was Ambassador Yixtal from the Nexari Union, a species that rarely spoke during council meetings. There is one species we have not contacted. Who? Velthari asked, hope returning to her voice for the first time in days. The humans, Yixtal said quietly, from the world they call Earth in the Orion Arm. The chamber erupted in noise as dozens of aliens began talking at once. Most of them were laughing, but it was not happy laughter. It was the bitter laughter of people who had been told a bad joke when their world was ending. The humans? Morden said, his forearms waving in disbelief. Those primitive creatures who barely learned to leave their own world? They still use chemical rockets and metal ships. They have not even learned to speak properly to other species. They are violent, added General Kextar. Their history is full of wars among their own kind. They fight over everything, land, resources, ideas. They even fight over things their invisible spirits supposedly told them to do. Exactly, Yixtal said, his small voice somehow carrying across the entire chamber. They are violent. They fight constantly. War is not something new to them. It is what they do best. Velthari felt a small spark of something she had not felt in months. It might have been hope, but it felt dangerous and wild. What do we know about them? Yixtal activated his own display. Images of Earth appeared. A small blue and green world orbiting a yellow star. Then came pictures of humans themselves. They looked similar to several other species in the galaxy. But there was something different about their eyes. Something that made other aliens uncomfortable. They have been watching us for decades, Yixtal explained. Our deep space monitors have detected their primitive radio signals. They know about us, but they have never tried to make contact. They seem suspicious of other species. Because they are smart enough to be afraid, Mordun said, as they should be. Or, Velthari said slowly, because they are smart enough to wait and watch before they act. More images appeared. Human cities, human soldiers, human weapons. Everything looked crude and simple compared to galactic technology. But there was something about the way humans built things that caught Velthari's attention. Their weapons were not elegant or beautiful like Zephyrian technology. They were thick, heavy, and looked like they were built to work even when everything else was broken. Their military forces are enormous, Yixtal continued. For such a young species, they have created massive armies and navies. They build weapons like they expect to fight wars that last for years. Which they do, added another voice. Human wars sometimes last for decades. They fight until one side cannot fight anymore. Velthari looked around the chamber at all the alien faces. She saw fear, doubt, and the beginning of desperation. The Drak Empire was coming for all of them eventually. Every species in the galaxy would face the same choice her people had faced: surrender or die. They asked for no help when they fought their wars, she said quietly. They solved their problems with their own hands. Maybe that is what we need now. Someone who knows how to fight wars that cannot be won. You cannot be serious, Mordun protested. They are primitives. What can they do that our combined fleets cannot? Velthari looked at the images of dead worlds that still floated in the air above them. 47 worlds. 2 billion people. All gone because the galaxy's greatest civilizations could not stop one enemy. I do not know, she admitted. But I know that everything we have tried has failed. Our technology failed. Our diplomacy failed. Our combined military might failed. Maybe it is time to try something different. She made her decision then, standing in the great crystal chamber surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy. It was a choice that would change everything, though none of them knew it yet. I am sending a message to Earth, she announced. We will ask the humans for help. The chamber fell silent. No one tried to stop her. They all knew she was right, even if they did not want to admit it. They had run out of options. Velthari activated her personal communicator and began composing a message to a small blue world that had never been contacted by the galactic community. She had no idea what kind of response she would get from the humans. She had no idea that she was about to wake up something that the galaxy was not prepared for. Admiral Jehun Park was drinking his morning coffee when every computer screen in NORAD suddenly went white. The coffee cup froze halfway to his lips as he watched symbols he had never seen before appear across every monitor in the command center. Around him, technicians began shouting in panic as the same thing happened to computers all over the world. Sir, Sergeant Williams called out from his station. We're getting the same signal at the Pentagon, NASA, the European Space Agency, and every major military installation on Earth. The signal is translating itself. Jehun put down his coffee and walked to the main display screen. The alien symbols were changing before his eyes, slowly turning into letters he could read. First in English, then in Korean, then Chinese, Russian, Arabic, and dozens of other languages. All saying the same thing. People of Earth, the message began. My name is Ambassador Velthari of the Corellian Federation. We know you have been watching us, listening to our signals from the stars. We need your help. The command center fell completely quiet. Every person in the room stopped what they were doing and stared at the screen. After decades of listening to space for any sign of alien life, first contact had arrived. And it came with a request for military assistance. An enemy called the Drak Empire is destroying entire worlds, the message continued. They have weapons that our most advanced civilizations cannot fight. They take pleasure in causing pain and death. 47 of our worlds are gone. Billions of our people are dead. We are asking every species in the galaxy for help. We are asking you. Jihoon felt his heart begin to beat faster. He had spent 30 years in the military, fighting in wars across the world. He knew what desperation sounded like, and this alien's message was full of it. The message continued with technical data, star charts, and something that made Jihoon's blood run cold: video recordings of what the Drak Empire did to worlds they conquered. The images were terrible. Cities burning, alien families running for their lives, ships that looked like they were made of living tissue tearing apart space stations. "Jesus Christ," whispered Dr. Minji Choi as she entered the command center. She was Earth's leading expert on the possibility of alien life, though she had never expected to see proof of it like this. How are they translating into every human language at once? "That's not the important question right now," Jihoon replied, still watching the horrific images on the screen. "The question is whether this is real." Colonel Donghyun Lee burst through the doors of the command center, still putting on his uniform jacket. He had been called in from his home when the signal first appeared. "Admiral, we're getting confirmation from every space agency on Earth. This signal is coming from outside our solar system, approximately 47 light-years away. The mathematics and physics in their message check out." Minji moved to one of the computer terminals and began analyzing the alien data. The biological information they're sending about these Drak creatures, it's incredibly detailed. No human could have created this. The genetic structures are unlike anything on Earth. More people began filing into the command center. Within an hour, scientists, military leaders, and government officials from around the world were connected by video link. Everyone was asking the same questions. Was this real? What should humanity do? How could Earth possibly help aliens with technology thousands of years more advanced? President Sung-ho Kim appeared on the main screen from the White House. His face looked calm, but Jihoon had known him for years and could see the excitement and fear in his eyes. "Admiral Park, I need your honest assessment. Are we looking at a legitimate request for military assistance from an alien civilization?" Jihoon looked around the room at all the data being processed by the best minds on Earth. "Mr. President, every piece of evidence says yes. The signal origin, the translation technology, the scientific data, it's all beyond our current capabilities to fake." "Then we have a decision to make," the president said. "The message says they need help fighting a war against an enemy that has already destroyed dozens of worlds. They're asking for military support from a species they've never contacted before." General Hyunsu Nam joined the conversation from the Pentagon. "Mr. President, with respect, what could we possibly offer? Our most advanced spaceships are barely capable of reaching Mars. These aliens have technology that can travel between stars. If their weapons can't stop this Drak Empire, what good are ours?" Dr. Minji raised her hand. "General, I think you might be missing something important. Look at the tactical data they've provided about their battles with the Drak." New images appeared on the screens showing space battles between alien fleets. The human observers watched as elegant, beautiful ships fought against dark, organic-looking vessels that seemed to be alive. "The aliens fight like we used to fight wars 100 years ago," Minji continued. "Clean battles between military forces. Rules of engagement. They try to minimize civilian casualties. They aim for military victories that will lead to peace negotiations." Jihoon began to understand what she was suggesting, but the Drak don't fight by those rules. Exactly. The Drak fight total war. They target civilians. They destroy entire planets. They use biological weapons. They fight to completely eliminate their enemies. Minji paused and looked around the room. That's something humans know how to do. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed what she had said. Human history was full of wars where the goal was not just victory, but the complete destruction of the enemy's ability to fight back. Wars where entire cities were burned, whole populations were displaced, and the losers were left unable to ever threaten the winners again. Colonel Donghyun spoke up quietly. "The aliens are asking for help because their civilized way of war cannot defeat an uncivilized enemy. And they think we can help because we're not civilized," added General Nam, President. Kim's face on the screen showed he was thinking carefully about the implications. "Dr. Choi, in your professional opinion, could Earth's military forces actually contribute to this war?" Minji pulled up more data from the alien message. "Mr. President, their weapons are more advanced than ours, but they're designed for precision. Clean kills, minimal damage to infrastructure. The Drak have adapted to fight against that kind of warfare. But our weapons, Our weapons are designed for maximum destruction. She brought up images of human military equipment. Nuclear weapons, cluster bombs, chemical weapons, biological warfare agents, weapons that most human nations had banned from use against each other because they were too terrible. We have weapons designed to kill everything in large areas, she continued. We have strategies for fighting enemies who don't follow rules. We have experience with wars where the goal is not just to win, but to make sure the enemy can never fight again. Admiral Ji-hoon felt a chill run down his spine as he realized what Earth's response was going to be. They're asking for help fighting monsters. And they think we know how to fight monsters because we are monsters. President Kim was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady but grim. Gentlemen, ladies, I need you to prepare options for responding to this request. Work with our allies. Find out what kind of military support we could realistically provide. Mr. President, General Nam interrupted, are we seriously considering going to war with aliens we've never met to help other aliens we've also never met? The president looked at the images still playing on the screens. Worlds burning. Cities destroyed. Alien families dying. General, 47 worlds have been destroyed. Billions of innocent people are dead. If these Drak creatures are not stopped, they will eventually find Earth. Ji-hoon nodded in agreement. Mr. President, I recommend we accept their request for help. Not just because it's the right thing to do, but because they're right. We do know how to fight this kind of war. Within hours, leaders from every major nation on Earth were involved in the discussions. The initial shock of first contact was quickly replaced by something else. The grim satisfaction of people who finally had a problem they knew how to solve. The Chinese premier was the first to commit military forces. If we are going to fight monsters, we should send enough forces to win decisively. The Russian president agreed. Half measures will only get our people killed. If we do this, we do it properly. The British Prime Minister added, our combined space programs can modify existing missiles for deep space use. We have the industrial capacity to build a fleet. As the day went on, the scope of Earth's response began to take shape. Not a small expedition to offer limited help, but a massive military campaign designed to solve the Drak problem permanently. Dr. Minji was the one who finally said what everyone was thinking. The aliens asked for help stopping the Drak Empire. They didn't ask us to defeat them or contain them. They asked us to stop them. That's what we're going to do. Admiral Ji-hoon began drafting Earth's response to Ambassador Velthari's message. It was short and to the point. Ambassador Velthari, this is Admiral Ji-hoon Park of Earth's United Military Command. We have received your request for assistance against the Drak Empire. We accept. Prepare to receive our full military response. We do not fight wars to win. We fight wars to end them. The message was transmitted toward the Karelian Federation that same day, Earth's first communication with an alien civilization. Ambassador Velthari stood at the observation deck of the Karelian space station, watching something that should have been impossible. The empty space around their border world was filling up with human ships. Not dozens of ships, not hundreds, but thousands upon thousands of crude metal vessels emerging from hyperspace jumps. How many are there? She asked Captain Zolmak, the station commander. Our sensors stopped counting at 50,000 ships, he replied, his crystal voice shaking with disbelief. They keep coming. Every few minutes more arrive. Velthari had been waiting 6 months for the human response. She had expected perhaps a few ships with some soldiers offering to help. The message from Admiral Ji-hoon Park had been encouraging but vague. Nothing had prepared her for this. Ambassador, called Communications Officer Yelton from her station, we're receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel. Put it on the main screen. The image that appeared showed a human male in a blue uniform covered with metal decorations. His face had the kind of hard lines that came from years of making difficult decisions. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed. Ambassador Velthari, this is Commander Sunwoo Jang of the Earth Expeditionary Force. Permission to dock and discuss our operational parameters. Of course, Commander. You are welcome aboard our station. An hour later, Velthari met Commander Sunwoo in the station's main conference room. He was smaller than she had expected. Most humans were shorter than Corallians. But there was something about the way he moved that reminded her of the predators from her homeworld. Efficient, purposeful, dangerous. Commander, may I ask how many ships you have brought? 200,000 combat vessels. Sunwoo replied as if he was discussing the weather. 50 million military personnel. Support ships bringing weapons, supplies, and industrial equipment to build more weapons. Velthari felt her crystal body flicker with shock. 50 million soldiers? Commander, there are only 3 billion humans on your entire planet. Correct. About 1 in every 60 humans volunteered for this mission. We had to turn away twice as many applicants. Sunwoo activated a portable display device. These are our operational plans. The holographic display showed the Corellian star system and the surrounding space where Drac forces were expected to arrive. But the human battle plans were unlike anything Velthari had seen before. Your strategy appears to involve total destruction of Drac forces, she said carefully. Yes, but what about prisoners? Negotiation? Surely some accommodation can be reached. No. Sunwoo's interruption was polite but final. Ambassador, you called us because your civilized approach to warfare failed. We are not civilized. We are effective. Before Velthari could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Captain Zolmak's voice echoed through the corridors. All stations prepare for battle. Drac fleet detected approaching the system. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Sunwoo stood up immediately. Ambassador, I recommend you evacuate all non-essential personnel from this system. What happens next will not be pleasant to watch. Commander, wait. How do you know you can defeat them? The Drac have destroyed every fleet sent against them. Sunwoo paused at the door and turned back to her. Ambassador, has anyone ever fought a war against the Drac with the goal of making sure they could never fight again? I know. The goal has always been to force them to withdraw, to negotiate. That's why you lost. He left the conference room, heading back to his ship. 6 hours later, the Drac invasion fleet arrived at the edge of the Corellian system. Velthari watched from the station as the enemy ships emerged from hyperspace. Dark, organic vessels that looked more like living creatures than machines. She had seen recordings of these ships before, but seeing them in person made her understand why so many worlds had fallen to them. The Drac fleet moved with predatory grace toward the inner system, expecting to find the usual resistance, a few thousand defending ships that would fight bravely and die quickly. Instead, they found something that had never existed before in galactic history. By the eternal crystals, whispered Captain Zolmak. What are the humans doing? The human fleet was not positioned to defend the planets in the system. Instead, they had formed a massive sphere around the entire area where the Drac fleet was approaching. It was not a defensive formation. It was a trap. Commander Sunwoo's voice came over the communication system. All human vessels. This is command. Execute plan Hammerfall. No survivors. What happened next would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The human ships did not fire elegant energy weapons like other galactic civilizations. They launched thousands of simple metal missiles armed with fusion warheads, nuclear weapons that had been banned from use in space by every civilized species. The Drac fleet found itself surrounded by explosions that turned space itself into a hellish inferno. Their bioshields, which had been designed to deflect energy weapons, provided no protection against the raw destructive force of nuclear fire. But the humans were not finished. As the Drac ships tried to retreat, they discovered that the human sphere was not just around them. It was moving inward, compressing, making escape impossible. Dr. Gayung Kim's voice joined the communication. Deploying biological weapons. All human personnel, seal your suits. From thousands of human ships, clouds of microscopic particles spread through space. Velthari watched in horrified fascination as the Drac bioships began to change color, their living hulls writhing as human-made viruses attacked their organic systems. Those weapons, she whispered to Captain Zolmak. They designed weapons specifically to kill the Drac. In 6 months? Zolmak replied. How is that possible? The answer came from Captain Yujin Han as her ground forces prepared to board the few Drac vessels that were still intact. We have been designing weapons to kill each other for thousands of years. Designing weapons to kill you was easy. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, not a single Drac ship remained functional. The few Drac survivors were taken prisoner by human soldiers who showed them no cruelty, but also no mercy. They were specimens to be studied, sources of information about Drac military capabilities and home. Worlds. Velthari received a communication, request from Commander Sunwoo as the human ships began forming up for their next operation. Ambassador, we have obtained the location of 17 Drac military installations from the prisoners. We will be departing to destroy them. I recommend you begin evacuating any Corellian worlds near Drac space. Commander, surely now that you have won this battle, the Drac will be willing to negotiate. No, Ambassador. The Drac Empire will be destroyed, completely. Every military base, every weapons facility, every shipyard. We will not stop until they have no ability to threaten anyone ever again. But that could take years. What about your own planet? Your people? Sunwoo was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a decision that an entire species had made together. Ambassador, when we left Earth, our leaders made something very clear. We are not coming home until this problem is solved. Not managed, not contained, not negotiated with. Solved. The human fleet began moving toward the edge of the system, heading for Drac space. Velthari realized with growing amazement and terror that the humans were not conducting a military campaign. They were conducting an extermination. Commander, wait. What if the Drac surrender? What if they agree to leave our worlds alone? Then they will have the opportunity to surrender to the next species they decide to attack. We cannot allow that risk. As the last human ships disappeared into hyperspace, Velthari understood what her people had done. They had asked for help from a species that did not believe in half measures. The humans had not come to fight the Drac Empire. They had come to erase it from existence. Captain Zolmak joined her at the observation deck as they watched the human fleet disappear into the stars. Ambassador, what have we unleashed? Velthari thought about the recordings of human history that had been included with their response to her message. Hundreds of wars, most of them ending not with peace treaties but with the complete destruction of one side or the other. I asked for help stopping monsters, she said quietly. I never asked what kind of creatures you have to be to stop monsters permanently. In the distance, space itself seemed to glow as the human fleet's nuclear engines carried 50 million soldiers toward the heart of Drac territory. The galaxy was about to learn what total war looked like when practiced by a species that had perfected it over millennia. The Drac Empire had 3 months left to exist. They just did not know it yet. Velthari sent a priority message to the Galactic Council. The humans have arrived. May the Eternal Crystals have mercy on us all for what we have started. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going for 12 hours, and nobody wanted to be the first to say what they were all thinking. On the main display, reports kept coming in from across the galaxy. The human war machine was moving through Drac space like a disease, leaving nothing alive in its wake. 73 Drac worlds have gone silent in the past month, announced Councillor Morden, his 4 purple arms shaking as he read the reports. Not conquered. Silent. Our long-range sensors show no life signs at all. Ambassador Velthari stood in the center of the chamber, no longer the desperate figure who had begged for help 6 months ago. Now she looked like someone who had opened a door that could never be closed again. The humans are very efficient, she said quietly. They do not occupy Drac worlds. They sterilize them. General Kextar of the Theron hegemony activated his own display. Images appeared of what had been the Drac industrial world of Morthak. Where once there had been cities and factories, now there was only glass. The humans had turned the entire planet's surface into a sheet of melted rock. This is not war, Kextar said, his thick warrior's voice cracking with something that might have been fear. This is extermination. Yes, replied a new voice from the chamber's communication system. Everyone turned to see General Tae-hyun-oh of Earth's military command appearing on a side screen. He had requested permission to address the council after their discussions had been going on for hours. General Oh, Velthari said carefully, the council appreciates your progress in the war against the Drac Empire, but some members have expressed concern about your methods. Tae-hyun looked around at all the alien faces staring at him. His expression was polite but showed no emotion. What concerns? Councillor Yixtel of the Nixari Union spoke up nervously. General, our intelligence reports suggest you are not taking prisoners. You are not attempting to negotiate surrenders. You appear to be killing every Drac you encounter. That is correct. But surely some accommodation can be reached. Some way for the Drac to exist without threatening other species. Tae-hyun was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his words were simple and final. No, the chamber fell silent. Finally, Velthari asked the question they all wanted to ask but were afraid to hear the answer to. General Oh, what exactly is your military objective in this war? Complete elimination of the Drak Empire's capacity to wage war against any species, anywhere, at any time in the future. And how do you plan to accomplish that? By eliminating the Drak Empire, the words hung in the air like a death sentence. Morden was the first to find his voice. General, you are talking about genocide. Yes, that is against every law of civilized warfare. It violates every treaty and agreement between galactic species. Taehyun's expression did not change. Counselor, your civilized warfare failed to protect 47 worlds and 2 billion people. Our uncivilized warfare will ensure that no more worlds are lost. New reports began coming in even as they spoke. Colonel Soan Park's Deep Strike forces had located and destroyed the primary Drak breeding facility on their homeworld of Thakmor. Dr. Junsu, Lee's Psychological Warfare Division, had successfully penetrated Drak communication networks, broadcasting footage of human soldiers walking through the ruins of Drak military installations. But it was the reports from Captain Yejin Seo's intelligence units that made the council members truly understand what they were dealing with. The humans had not just found Drak military targets. They had found every Drak colony, every Drak outpost, every place in the galaxy where Drak existed. How? Whispered Yixtel. How did you map their entire civilization so quickly? General Taehyun smiled for the first time during the conversation, but it was not a pleasant expression. We are very good at finding things we want to destroy. It is a skill we have practiced for a long time. The truth was worse than the council members could have imagined. Humans had spent the past 6 months not just fighting the Drak, but systematically hunting down every trace of their civilization. Human intelligence officers had interrogated captured Drak not for military information, but for the locations of every world they had ever visited, every base they had ever seen, every member of their species they had ever known. The Drak Empire currently consists of 137 worlds, Taehyun continued, 41 military installations, 23 shipyards, and approximately 8 billion individual Drak. In 3 weeks, those numbers will be 0. Velthari felt her crystal body flickering with horror. General, surely you do not mean to kill 8 billion sentient beings. Ambassador, the Drak killed 2 billion of your people for entertainment. They have killed billions more across dozens of other species. They take pleasure in causing death and suffering. Yes, we mean to kill 8 billion of them. General Kextar leaned forward in his chair. And after the Drak are gone, what then? Do you return to your little world and pretend none of this happened? Taehyun looked directly at the Theron warrior. General Kextar, that depends on what the galaxy chooses to do next. What do you mean? The Galactic Council allowed the Drak Empire to exist for centuries. You knew what they were. You knew what they did to other species. You did nothing because it was not your people dying. Taehyun paused and let his words sink in. That ends now. New images appeared on the chamber's displays, not of Drak worlds but of other species. Planets where slavery was still practiced. Worlds where one species oppressed another. Systems where genocide was happening slowly, quietly, in ways that the Galactic Council chose to ignore. We have been watching you, Taehyun said. All of you. For decades we have monitored your communications, your trade routes, your political decisions. We know about every injustice you ignore, every atrocity you allow, every time you choose politics over protecting the innocent. The council chamber was completely silent now. Every representative was staring at the human general with growing realization of what he was suggesting. The Drak Empire was just the beginning, Taehyun continued. Humanity will not tolerate species that prey on others. We will not negotiate with civilizations built on slavery. We will not allow governments that commit genocide against their own people. You cannot be serious, Morden whispered. You are talking about imposing human values on the entire galaxy. No, Counselor. We are talking about imposing basic decency, the same standards that any civilized species should follow. Velthari understood now what her desperate message to Earth had really accomplished. She had not just asked for help against one enemy. She had invited humanity to become the galaxy's police force. What if we refuse? Asked Kextar. What if the galactic community decides that Earth has no right to dictate terms to species that have existed for millions of years longer than yours? Taehyun's smile returned, cold and dangerous. General, that is your choice to make. But consider this. In 6 months, we have eliminated an empire that your combined civilizations could not defeat in centuries of trying. We did this while fighting a war 47 light years from our home. using technology you consider primitive. He paused to let them think about the implications. Now imagine what we could accomplish if we decided that you were the problem. The communication ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Finally, Yixtal spoke up in a small, nervous voice. What have we done? Velthari looked around at all the terrified faces of the galaxy's most powerful leaders. We asked for help, she said. We got it. On the main display, more reports kept coming in. Drac worlds going silent one by one. The most vicious empire in galactic history, being systematically erased from existence by creatures they had thought were primitive savages. But now, they understood the truth. Humans were not primitive. They were not savages. They were something much more dangerous. They were efficient killers with moral principles and the industrial capacity to enforce those principles on a galactic scale. The age of the Galactic Council was ending. The age of human oversight was beginning, whether the galaxy liked it or not. The last Drac stronghold was a fortress built inside a dead moon, hidden in the dark space between star systems. For 300 years, it had been the secret headquarters of the Drac Empire's most elite forces. The creatures inside had planned the destruction of dozens of worlds from this hidden base. Admiral Minho Kim floated in the command center of his flagship, watching the final assault on his screens. Around him, his officers worked quietly and efficiently, coordinating the attack that would end the Drac Empire forever. All ships report ready for final bombardment, announced Lieutenant Commander Jiwan Lee. Commence firing, Minho ordered. The hidden fortress had taken the humans 2 years to find. It had taken them 6 hours to destroy. Nuclear warheads designed specifically for this moment turned the ancient stronghold into expanding gas and debris. With its destruction, the last organized Drac military force ceased to exist. Admiral called communications. Officer Hyunwoo Park. We're receiving surrender requests from the remaining Drac civilian populations on 7 worlds. How many total? Approximately 40,000 individuals, sir. Mostly young and elderly. No military capability. Minho was quiet for a moment, thinking about orders that had come directly from Earth's government. The Drac Empire was to be eliminated completely. No exceptions, no survivors who might rebuild their civilization and threaten other species again in the future. Sir, Hyunwoo prompted. Place them in containment facilities, Minho finally ordered. Humane conditions. Full medical care. They are no longer a military threat. It was a decision that would be debated on Earth for decades. The complete extermination of the Drac military and government, but mercy for the few civilians who remained. Some called it weakness. Others called it proof that humanity could be ruthless when necessary, but was not itself evil. 3 months later, Admiral Minho stood in what had once been the throne room of the Drac Emperor on the world of Thakmor. The massive chamber was empty now, its dark walls scarred by human weapons. Captain Yejin Seo stood beside him, reading from a report about the final phase of the war. Total enemy military casualties, approximately 7.8 billion, she read. Human casualties, 43,000 killed, 112,000 wounded. Complete destruction of Drac Empire military capabilities confirmed. And the civilian survivors? Relocated to 3 agricultural worlds under human supervision. Their children are being educated in schools that teach cooperation instead of conquest. In a few generations, they may become a peaceful species. Minho nodded and looked around the empty throne room. What about the galaxy's reaction? Yejin activated her portable display. Mixed, sir. The Corellian Federation has officially thanked humanity for ending the Drac threat. The Altarian Republic has requested human military advisors. The Theron hegemony has concerns about human intentions. And the Galactic Council? They have requested a meeting to discuss humanity's future role in galactic affairs. Minho almost smiled. I bet they have. The meeting took place 1 week later aboard a neutral space station in the border region between several major galactic powers. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to face the reality of their new situation. Humanity was no longer a primitive species that could be ignored. Ambassador Velthari entered the conference room where Admiral Minho was waiting alone. She had requested a private meeting before the formal negotiations began. Her crystal form seemed dimmer than it had been 3 years ago, as if the weight of what she had set in motion was draining her life force. Admiral Kim, she said as she took her seat, I wanted to speak with you before the others arrive. Of course, Ambassador. 3 years ago, I sent a message to your world asking for help. I was desperate. My people were dying and nothing we tried could stop the Drac. You saved your people, Ambassador. The Corellian Federation is safe now. Yes, but at what cost? Velthari's three eyes focused on Minho's face. We asked you to help us fight monsters, and you did. But in doing so, you became something that terrifies the galaxy more than the monsters ever did. Minho was quiet for a moment. Ambassador, what exactly are you afraid of? We are afraid that humanity will decide other species are threats that need to be eliminated. We are afraid that your definition of monsters might include us. Should it? The question hung in the air like a blade. Velthari realized that her answer would shape the future relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. No, she said finally. The Corellian Federation has never attacked other species. We trade peacefully, we negotiate fairly, we honor our agreements. Then you have nothing to fear from humanity. But what about species that are not as peaceful as we are? What about governments that you consider unjust? What about civilizations that have different values than yours? Minho stood up and walked to the conference room's window. Outside, human ships patrolled the space around the station, their presence a reminder of the military power that now influenced every political decision in the galaxy. Ambassador, let me ask you something. Before we arrived, how many species in this galaxy practiced slavery? Several dozen. But that is a complex cultural issue. How many governments ruled through fear and oppression? Admiral, you cannot expect every civilization to follow human political models. How many species were planning their own campaigns of conquest, waiting for the right moment to attack their neighbors? Velthari fell silent. They both knew the answers to his questions, and they both knew what those answers meant. We are not interested in controlling the galaxy, Minho continued. We are interested in making sure that what happened to your people never happens to anyone else. And if other species disagree with your methods? If they think humanity has become too powerful, too dangerous to exist? Minho turned away from the window and looked directly at her. Then they are welcome to try to stop us. The formal negotiations began an hour later. The galaxy's political leaders filed into the conference room, each one trying to project confidence while secretly calculating whether their own civilizations could survive human disapproval. General Kextar of the Theron hegemony was the first to speak. Admiral Kim, the hegemony wishes to clarify humanity's intentions regarding galactic governance. We have no intention of governing the galaxy, General. You are all free to manage your own affairs as you see fit. But we will be watching. And we will be ready to respond if any species decides to follow the Drac Empire's example. Counselor Morden leaned forward nervously. Admiral, surely there must be some mechanism for dispute resolution. Some way to address concerns before military action becomes necessary. Certainly, Counselor. Any species that wishes to discuss their concerns with humanity is welcome to do so. We are reasonable people. And if negotiations fail, then you will discover that we are also very thorough people. The negotiations continued for 3 days. In the end, the agreement was simple. Humanity would not interfere in the internal affairs of peaceful species, but would not tolerate aggressive expansion, genocide, or the oppression of other civilizations. As the various ambassadors signed the accords, Velthari realized that her desperate message 3 years ago had fundamentally changed the nature of galactic civilization. War between species was no longer possible when one species could end any war decisively. Oppression was no longer profitable when the oppressors might find their worlds turned to glass. Genocide was no longer an option when humanity was watching. The galaxy was safer, but it was no longer free to make its own mistakes. After the accords were signed, Admiral Minho prepared for the journey back to Earth. His work was finished, but he knew that humanity's role in galactic affairs was just beginning. Admiral, Velthari said as they prepared to part ways, do you think we made the right choice? Asking for your help? Minho looked out at the stars, thinking about all the species that would never again fear extinction, all the worlds that would never again face genocidal invasion. Ambassador, you asked us to stop monsters. We did. Whether that was the right choice depends on whether you think a galaxy without monsters is worth the price of having guardians who can become monsters when necessary. As the human fleet prepared to depart for Earth, messages began arriving from across the galaxy. Species requesting human advisors to help them reform their governments. Civilizations asking for human protection against aggressive neighbors. Worlds begging for human intervention in civil wars and border disputes. Humanity had answered one call for help and discovered that the galaxy was full of people who needed help. The question now was how much help they were willing to provide, and what kind of galaxy they wanted to create with their newfound power. Admiral Minho sent a final message to Earth's government. Mission completed. Drac Empire eliminated. Galaxy stable, awaiting further instructions. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human responsibility for galactic civilization had begun. Whether humanity was ready for that responsibility remained to be seen.